Sat Sri Akal, Ji Ayanu. Welcome to another episode here of You Are Not Alone, and all about alcohol and beyond and what life does to you when you drink. Today's guest is somebody that's been through recovery at a very similar period that I went through recovery myself. And I'd like to welcome Mike Shinton to the show. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Harvey. Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you after such a long time.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and you haven't changed a bit.
Thank you for the compliment. So, how have things been with you now since your recovery process?
I'm just loving life. I'm really loving life. My life has been one of extremes, basically. I've had high highs and low lows, and all the low lows were during my drinking times. And I've just said to you, I'm loving life at the moment. That's something I really couldn't have said in the depths of my drinking. I hated every minute.
Yeah. We're going to have viewers watching this at the moment thinking, you know, how is it that these people have managed to stop? I mean, we have got an interview of yours that we're going to play in a while once we've discussed this.
Okay.
But how would you make people understand that this illness, and it is an illness, how can they try and stop hiding it from their families and reach out for help?
Okay, that's really the killer question, isn't it? And it's a question that I avoided for many years because I couldn't see any way out. It's an illness, it's an addiction that it's a form of insanity. I think I had a form of insanity when I was going through mine, and my addiction was telling me exactly the opposite to what was the truth. And I really couldn't see any way out. I tried to stop many times. I've never really admitted to myself for a long time, although I knew deep down, I knew within that I had this illness called alcoholism. I thought it was only me that was feeling it. I felt alone, I felt isolated. I just felt like there was no hope. But I know today that that's absolutely not the case. And there is a way out. And I think you and I were going to be discussing some of our experiences of that.
Well, that's right. First thing I want to discuss is obviously the 12 steps.
Yep.
12-step program that we went through.
Yep.
I mean, step one. What step one is basically that
we're powerless over alcohol.
We're powerless over alcohol, and our lives have become unmanageable.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as we admit that, that is what this show is about. If you are sitting there at home now watching this and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I can't wait to have my next drink, or you're planning your life around alcohol, around the clock, 24 hours a day, you have become powerless over alcohol and your life has become unmanageable, and we are here to help. Now, Mike, when do you think you realised that you needed to seek help?
About 20 years before I actually did seek help. If I'm truthful, there was a. I remember it distinctly. There was a day when I was in my 20s, and I woke up one morning, and I thought the first thought I had was, if you keep drinking like this, there's going to come a time when you have no option, but you're going to have to stop. And that was the first time that I'd really admitted it to me. Yeah. Although I went on in denial for long after that.
Now, from me getting to know you over the years, you had some very, very high-powered jobs. You had some very, very expensive material goods that to alcoholics are very, very important. We thrive off that.
You know, I never did really. I only got the good jobs and I guess the measures of success, or the trappings of success, when I got sober. And then I got drunk again and lost them all again.
Yeah.
You know, it's a condition that's characterised by loss, despair, fear.
So when you were drinking, and you know you were doing well, how did you cope?
Hang on, can I just stop you there, Harvey? I was never drinking and doing well at the same time.
You weren't?
No, never.
So you went through a situation where when you did drink, that was the end of it.
I almost did well on a number of occasions,
yeah,
but then I'd sabotage myself at the last moment. I always nearly succeeded, but ultimately failed. I never did anything successfully in my drinking years, in my alcoholic drinking years.
So you would say that you were not really a functioning alcoholic?
I was functioning.
This is the bit I'm trying to work out.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
Yeah, we've got functioning alcoholics who go to work every day, and they've got the same pattern, but they are successful as well. Then you've got others that will get success, they'll get sober, and like you said, they'll sabotage it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to work out, because there are going to be a lot of viewers out there thinking, well, I'm earning my own money, I've got my business, I'm doing well. What's it got to do with anybody else? That is the point I'm trying to get at.
I understand that completely. And can I just give you my own perspective on that? I feel lucky that if there's a scale of alcoholism, and that's mild, this is the most severe, I was up at this end. And I feel lucky to be there. Because if I'd have been there, maybe there, maybe there, maybe I'd have been able to continue drinking throughout my life and lived a life of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
As it was, I was up here and I spent a number of years, many years, spending my life. My life was a misery.
Yeah.
There was no joy, there was no happiness. I thought there was alcohol-induced happiness, but it's not real happiness. It's fleeting, it's false happiness. But because I was up here, I had no option but to stop. You know, I had to find a way. And I stopped for a number of years, had a relapse, stopped again. Those number of years that I stopped, it was about 12 years that I stopped for, were some of the happiest years of my life and most successful. But I didn't get successful. It was always in me, obviously, because you know it appeared eventually.
Well, relapse is actually part of recovery.
Yeah.
You know, people do relapse, but as long as you want to stop and you want to continue to be sober, then it does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been doing a lot of work around with alcoholics and doing some coaching and stuff like that. What do you think some of the common causes of relapse have been?
Life can get on top of us all at times, and if we've spent years drinking, that's a coping mechanism. It's not a coping mechanism at all, but the addict's always with us.
Yeah.
And the addict will tell us that it's a coping mechanism. So times of stress, self-pity is a good one to drink on.
Yeah.
Resentments are a great one to drink on. Resentments are really interesting, aren't they? Because, you know, if I've got resentment to you, it does you no harm at all.
No.
But it can kill me.
That's right. That's right. I mean, resentment against somebody or anger about a certain situation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot of viewers out there probably thinking, well, this person that's drinking around the house is constantly angry. Well, there's a reason for this anger. There's an underlying issue that has to be dealt with. Now, this is what we do. If you call in the numbers that are on your screen at Alcohol Channel, we can book you appointments to see the person, but the person has to want help. Mike, is that true? It has to be the person who wants help. You cannot help an alcoholic.
You can't help anybody who doesn't want to help themselves.
That's right. That's right. So going back to relapse prevention, I mean, the coping mechanisms, what are the coping mechanisms that you sort of use?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I've had, you know, long periods of my life in sobriety, in happy sobriety. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things I could never see when I was in the depths of my drinking. I could never see that I could ever get to a point where I could stop drinking and be happy. Another addiction lie, actually, because I couldn't get happy until I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
I love life today. I'm doing what I love, and actually I'm doing what my experiences taught me to do. Yeah. You know, I see a reason for the path I've trodden now, and I just love working with people. I've forgot the question was, what are the coping mechanisms?
Well, the coping mechanisms. Also, I was going to ask you sort of like the AA 12 steps.
Yeah.
And do you attend meetings?
Personally, I know I should. No, I should. There's no such word as should. No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I used to, and in the early days, it was AA that really got me sober. And I spent, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years regularly attending AA meetings, and I don't think I would have achieved sobriety without the support of AA. And I think AA is great. I wouldn't have a word said against AA, and it helps many people. It's just that I've found other ways now that just connect with me better.
Okay. There are a lot of people that do attend AA, and it does work for them.
Yep.
And, you know, like I said, I wouldn't have a bad word said about them.
Yep.
I attend them. You know, I attend my local ones here, there, popped ones that, you know, the days I feel that I need to attend them.
Yeah.
But some people don't. Some people don't understand what AA is. And we will be doing, well, we've done a programme strictly based on AA, and we will be inviting people from AA to have a talk with us. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a commercial break.
Okay.
And we're also then going to be looking at your interview that we recorded about your life story.
Yep.
We'll be back with you very shortly. We're going to take a break right now.
Hi, my name's Mike Shinton, and I'm here to talk to you about a condition called alcoholism, and it's a condition that I've suffered from, and I say suffered advisedly, for many years. I don't suffer these days because I don't drink, but I want to tell you a little bit about my story, about how I got really sucked into alcoholism. I started to drink when I was in my mid-teens, I guess, and I thought I'd found the elixir of life. I'd always lacked a bit of confidence. I'd always appeared confident to everybody else, but I lacked a bit of confidence inside. And when I took my first drink, or maybe the first 2 or 3 drinks, it was as though I discovered something that was filling this hole within me, and really making me into the person that I wanted to be. And my confidence went through the roof when I'd had a few drinks, and my inhibitions disappeared. And like I say, I really thought I'd discovered the elixir of life. I became the life and soul of the party, and I guess, became the person who I'd always wanted to be, but was always scared of being, or never thought I could really be this person. But I really did become this person I really wanted to be, which was actually, in retrospect, not who I wanted to be at all, but it was who I thought I wanted to be at the time. I wanted to become this party animal, this guy who was full of wit and merriment, and who people wanted to be around. And for a while, that's how it was. And I really looked at alcohol as being my best friend. However, that didn't last too long. Within, I don't know how many years, maybe 5 or 6 years, I crossed a line that I could never cross back. And that line was into dependent drinking, I guess. I went from wanting and liking a drink to needing a drink. I couldn't enjoy myself on a night out unless alcohol was a part of it. I tried to get out of driving. I always wanted to put myself in a position where I could have the drink that I'd gone from wanting to needing. But I was still this party animal, and I didn't really see any problem at the time, because I was still surrounded by lots of friends and we were out partying every night. But again, after another few years, all of my friends being a lot more sensible than I was at the time, they got with partners and settled down and dropped out, and soon I was the only one left at the party. And that was when I became acutely aware of where I'd gone with alcohol. And it was a need at that time. I needed a drink rather than wanted a drink. I began to drink in isolation. I began to withdraw, and I started to have blackouts as well. Periods when I'd wake up in the morning and I really couldn't remember what had happened the night before. And I'd often got although I couldn't remember any specifics, I'd often got a really bad feeling that something pretty bad had happened. And often I'd find out that it had. And this was the time really when my descent into the alcoholic condition really accelerated. I drank more and more. I started drinking in the daytime. In fact, there weren't many hours in the day when I wasn't under the influence of alcohol. And I guess at this time I'd be probably late 20s. I used to drink and drive regularly, something which I'm absolutely not proud of. But it just became a way of life. Alcohol was my way of life. Alcohol became my reason for living. When it gets to that stage, when the need for when a drink becomes a need rather than a want, there's no joy in drinking whatsoever. There's no happiness. There's no fun in drinking, and more it became a miserable existence where even if I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about drinking. And that was the dominant thought in my mind. Having a drink was always at the front of my mind. And looking back on my life now, I can say with absolute honesty that every bit of trouble that I've ever got into was alcohol fueled. I've been arrested. I've been done for drink driving. I've never really harmed anybody else knowingly. I did a lot of emotional damage to the people who were close to me. But I was never a nasty drunk. I was never an angry or violent drunk, thank God. But yes, certainly every bit of trouble that I've ever had in my life was alcohol fueled. And it got to the stage where I was regularly drinking a bottle of spirits a day, maybe more, and even that sometimes wouldn't be enough. And I would go off at weekends, hold myself up in a hotel with 5 or 6 bottles of spirits, whatever it was, whiskey, vodka, and just stay in my room and drink for the whole weekend. Drink for oblivion. Now, looking at it logically, where's the fun in that? To stay oblivious to everything in a hotel room for the weekend, it's sheer madness. And that's really what alcoholism is. It's a form of insanity. I was certainly insane when I was drinking. And it got to the stage where I started to lose things. I lost a house, I lost several jobs, I lost family, even my own parents, and I had such a special relationship with my mother. We were so close all of her life, apart from the last few years of my drinking. When she was on antidepressants, I'd let her down, I'd make promises that I couldn't keep, I'd become totally unreliable, and she could take it no more. And even my own mother put me at arm's length. So I lost houses, I lost jobs, I lost the people who I held dear, but most importantly of all, I'd lost myself. I'd completely lost sight of who I was as a person. And looking back now, and I call those my wilderness years, I know I was living as the person who I am not. And I was just living in such misery and unhappiness, but the predominant feeling was always fear. Alcoholism is a fear-based condition. I didn't know what I was scared of, but I was just scared of everything. And the nature of the addiction, the nature of the condition, was telling me that alcohol was the only thing that would take the fear away. When in fact the addiction is a liar, because alcohol was the only thing that was making that fear exist in the first place and actually grow and get worse. And the further I got on into my addiction, the worse the fear became. Until I got to a point where I could take it no longer. I got to the point where I really couldn't imagine life without a drink, but I couldn't face the thought of a drink either. the last few months of my drinking were characterised by I'd buy a bottle and I'd hate the first half of it. I'd really have to force myself to drink it because my body was reacting so violently and wanting to reject it. My body was telling me that it really didn't want any more of this poison. So I would have to I would have to literally pour the first half bottle into myself. And then it got a bit easier. And what I was looking for, just before I went into oblivion, because my body really couldn't tolerate as much alcohol as it had done by this stage, just before I went into oblivion, there would be this, and I don't know how long it lasted. It could have been a second, it could have been 30 seconds, it could have been a minute. It wasn't long, but there would be this period of intense bliss just before I passed out. And that was all I drank for. It was that feeling of bliss, fleeting that it was. That was it. And after that, oblivion. So I got to the stage where I couldn't imagine the thought of life without a drink anymore, but my body was telling me that it really didn't want any more, and I got to the stage where I just couldn't drink anymore. And I'd made attempts to stop drinking before that, and they never worked. They may have lasted for a couple of days, a couple of hours in some cases, a couple of days, a couple of weeks. But I was never happy, and I always knew that I wasn't going to stay stopped. I always knew that I was going to start again sooner or later, and normally, as I say, it was sooner. But I got to the stage where I knew if I didn't stop, and I'd be about 40 at the time, I knew I was going to die. You know, my body was screaming at me, stop, stop, stop. It really couldn't take any more. And I just had to completely surrender and admit I was a hopeless alcoholic. I'm not sure if I'd actually used the word alcoholic before, and in fact I don't use the word I don't use the phrase I am an alcoholic these days. I say that I have alcoholism, and alcoholism is no big deal as long as you don't drink. It doesn't affect my life in any way today. I have a great life back. Purely because I don't drink. Alcoholism is only a big deal if you do drink, and it's a very big deal. In fact, in my case, I almost lost everything, including my life. And the road to recovery, actually, it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. I had to come to realise that alcohol was the symptom of the problem. I was the problem, and it was things within me that I had to change. I couldn't just stop drinking. I had to look at the underlying causes, which are all attitudes and beliefs that I'd come to adopt and come to live by, and within quite a short space of time, I realised they were completely the wrong attitudes. And by changing me, I can look back at my alcoholic years now, not exactly with warmth, but I can look at them from a completely different perspective. Miserable as they were to go through and to live through at the time, by learning who I was not, I've actually been able to find out who I am. And whereas the person who I was not, I really disliked, intensely disliked, probably hated. There were points in my life when my drinking life, when I would have changed places with absolutely anybody in the world, no matter what their station in life, because I detested who I was so much. So that was the person I'm not. I actually have come to quite like the person who I am, and I love life these days, and it's good to be able to share my experiences as well, because I believe that's what we're all here for. You know, I've experienced hell on earth, as most practicing alcoholics have, and you know, if I can help somebody who's there or approaching that place at the moment, with the experiences that I've had, and help anybody to recover, sharing the experiences of my recovery. That makes me so happy these days, because I really believe that we're all here to serve each other and support each other. And yeah, it's a horrendous experience to go through, and it's known in Alcoholics Anonymous as a powerful, cunning and baffling condition, and that's exactly what it is. The compulsion I had to drink came before everything and everyone, even the people who I loved dearly. Alcohol always came first. Alcohol, in any battle, always won. It was that powerful. It was always on my shoulder. It was cunning, and however I tried to escape it, it was always there, and it was on my shoulder and chirping in my ear as well. Drink, drink, drink. And it was baffling. It completely baffled me. I tried every way I knew to escape from it, but escape I couldn't. The only way that I found in the end to escape from it was not to try to escape, was just surrender to it. I hope what I've shared, if you are suffering from this condition at the moment, this awful condition, I hope you've been able to identify with some of it, and I wish you well on your road to recovery. Thank you.
Sasri Akal ji, and welcome back to the second part. As you know, we've been talking to Mike about addiction to alcohol, relapse. We've also been talking about the AA and how they help, and the traditions, and admitting the problems you have with alcoholism. Mike, going back to yourself again, we've seen your interview, and
hope it made sense.
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense, and it's very good of you to come on and tell people quite openly and honestly about your life, about the highs, the lows, where it took you to the depths, the love for your mother, all these things. I mean, tell me, out of all of the things that you think alcohol destroyed in your life, what would you say the most important thing is?
Me.
Because you have to look after number one first.
I lost me. Yeah. Completely. I lost my self-respect, I lost my dignity, I lost my sense of identity. Yeah, I was washed up and wasted with just a little seed of me that I'm still connected with. Thank God I'd got that.
Well, with that seed, you obviously you have started to grow.
Yeah.
You've grown to be able to stand up,
yeah, and
to be able to talk about your experiences and help people in similar situations.
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of it gives you some kind of self-gratification, self-pleasure,
It's the first time I did it, it was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. First time I spoke in public, not in an AA meeting. First time I spoke in public about my past and my addiction to alcohol. But it was the most liberating thing I'd ever done. It got rid of all my skeletons.
Did you find that it was almost a sort of a sense of release?
Absolutely.
And a relief that and people actually do come up to you and actually say, that was a very brave thing you just did. It's something that I couldn't never have done.
Well, I didn't think I could do it either. But whereas I'd spent years under the control of alcohol, my life was completely controlled by alcohol. It was out of control.
Yeah.
I went from feeling that to feeling this wonderful sense of freedom. And it was really the most liberating thing that I've ever done. And today I'll speak to anybody about it if I think it can do any good, if it can help anybody.
Let's go back to relapse. I mean, I can say honestly, I've relapsed on several occasions in the past, and the thing about relapse is, it's about getting yourself back where you were. I mean, people are also afraid of the word rehabilitation. You and I know, and I've mentioned this bit before, that rehabilitation means reinstating the person back to its original state.
Yeah.
And the fear that people have is, oh, that person's going to rehab. Look at the word. rehab, the stigma attached to it.
Well, there's a stigma attached to the whole area of addiction, isn't there?
There is.
And it's a condition, it's an illness that's becoming more and more recognised as such. So that stigma has got to disappear.
And it is so rife in the Asian community that we collectively need to find a solution for it. The numbers are on your screen. Pick up those phones, call in, and we will help you the very best we can. We'll point you in the right directions for the right services based on your circumstances, because there is help out there. Don't suffer in silence. Mike, how many people have you probably met doing some of your coaching sessions that are suffering from an addiction, but you've only realised that they're suffering from addiction when you've met them?
Almost 100%. Almost everybody is addicted to something or other,
Yeah.
and it may be something obvious, like like our addiction is. It could be something less obvious. There's anger. There's lots of things. But everybody is addicted to some form, I believe, of destructive behaviour. And I think the point you made there about people ringing in, that's so important, because we both know that the sense of isolation you feel when you're in the midst of alcoholism.
This is why this programme is called You Are Not Alone.
Yeah.
We are here for you.
Yeah, and I'm sure you felt that I felt that I was alone.
Yeah.
I felt that there was only me feeling what I felt, and I didn't feel like there was anybody else that could help me. Not the truth.
Yeah, that's why with alcohol and beyond, it's not just alcohol, it's beyond that.
Absolutely. It is,
Beyond that, you could get psychosis, there's mental health issues, there's family issues, there's family breakups, divorces,
death.
Ultimately, we've had episodes in the past where families have, been very, very, very upset and had to discuss the loss of loved ones, because this disease doesn't pick and choose who it's going to grab.
Completely doesn't discriminate.
It'll just, once it's grabbed you and it's got you. Unless you find help and you follow the steps and you start taking control of your own mind and you control your behaviour, you're not going to get anywhere.
No, absolutely not.
And coaching is very, very necessary for it. Coaching, or call it counselling, call it whatever.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Talking about it.
It's talking about it.
Yeah.
See, the word counselling, I'm going to see a counsellor, it's got a stigma attached to it. I'm having coaching for this. That's got sort of a stigma attached to it.
It has in this country, in the States,
It's normal.
normal. Yeah.
It's normal. It is talking about what you don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's also talking about things that you don't think anybody else is doing. Like every alcoholic will think that his behaviour or her behaviour is only them. Nobody else is doing it.
Every alcoholic story is not identical, but 90%.
90% the same.
Similar, yeah.
At 90% the same. It is all about secret drinking.
Lies, deceit.
Lying, cheating, deceiving, trying to cover it up.
Feeling fear.
Yeah.
Feeling anxiety. Feeling alone. Feeling isolated.
Yeah.
Feeling misery. Yeah. None of these are good words, are they?
No, they're not. But all these words are the what go round and round in an active alcoholic's head.
Yeah.
That makes them think, well, is it really worthwhile?
Yeah.
Is it worthwhile?
Yeah.
And the only thing that makes it make you feel better is by having another drink.
Which actually makes you feel worse.
Yeah. Because
it's a downward slope.
It's antidepressants.
Yeah.
It actually, at the time, it may elate your feelings of, it makes you feel better and you're okay, but really, in the back of your mind, you know what you've just done is wrong, so you drink on that as well.
Yeah.
And this is
The
what's
guilt.
the guilt.
Yeah.
It's guilt and shame.
Yeah.
All these things that are happening. Did you go through a period of that? I noticed you were saying spending time in hotel rooms.
When I was married, my wife at the time, and I love her still, but my wife at the time, she put up with all my drinking with no complaint, and I used to drink to oblivion every night. But still, that wasn't enough. I had to, I don't know how often it was, maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, I'd just disappear for the weekend with 2 bottles a day, you know, and just stay in the hotel, not eat, just completely stay in the hotel room and drink to oblivion. Wake up, drink. Is that sane behaviour, Harvey?
No, that's insanity. You know, that's what
Yeah.
we're taught. You know,
Yeah.
You know, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again.
And expecting a different result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, your wife must have been, you know,
She was
very
unbelievable.
understanding.
Yeah, she was unbelievable. And she always used to welcome me back with open arms. A lovely lady.
did she understand the illness, or was it a fact that she was just accepting your behaviour?
I don't know, because the strange thing was, I got sober when I was with her, and as we both know, it's not getting sober isn't just a matter of stopping drinking.
No.
You have to change.
Change of behaviour, change of mindset, change of
the way
attitude.
of thinking. Yeah, absolutely. And we started to go. She said quite openly and lovingly that she didn't like me. She didn't like the new me as much. So that's when we started to
Yeah.
lead
Well,
separately.
it says that in the AA book, doesn't it? In one of the chapters, I think it's the family afterwards.
Yeah.
It explains there where when the person becomes sober, that the family's got so used to the person being drunk all the time that they can't seem to cope with the new
And
sober person.
I did change. Fundamentally, I changed, and I like that changed person.
So since the change, obviously, with the separation and the change and the new you and what you've been doing, your life has changed dramatically.
Yeah, and the way I rationalise it now is that if I hadn't have gone through that period that I did go through, I wouldn't be where I am now. And what I'm doing right now, and I do lots of things, you know, I do coaching, I do counselling, I do quite a bit of speaking. I love helping people with problems of any sort. That feels like what I'm here to do. You know, I believe we've all got a purpose for being here, and this really does feel like my purpose. So
Okay. So recently you've been doing some. You did some speaking for the National Health Service as well.
Yeah.
And how did that feel? I think you said you spoke in front of approximately 120 people.
120 GPs, yeah.
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 How did that feel? Like, you know, speaking in front of doctors about something that
Change.
qualified for. I mean, we haven't got long left till the end of the show now.
Yeah.
But how did it actually feel? Because this is something that people have got to understand, that once you become sober, you are capable of doing.
It felt perfectly natural because I was talking to them about something that I knew more about than they did, which was how to change behaviour.
Yeah.
You know, they're experts in their field, hopefully. I'm not calling myself an expert, but I've certainly experienced enough change in my life and helped other people through change to be confident that I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, mate, we're coming towards the end of the show.
Yeah.
But I always say, towards the end of the show, if you'd like to look into your camera,
Yeah.
and if you had a message for our viewers, what would that message be?
It doesn't. If you're suffering at the moment, it doesn't have to be like this. I thought it had to be like that, and I thought it was something that I was stuck with for the rest of my life. But it doesn't have to be like that. There's help at hand. There's lots of help. If you're suffering yourself, if you know anybody else who's suffering, and if you're feeling that sense of isolation, which you can do if you're a family member as well, because it's almost as difficult, if not more difficult, when you're watching somebody you love go through this terrible illness, terrible condition. Reach out for help, and there's numbers on your screen, I think, right now. So give a Carl TV a call and do something positive. It doesn't have to be like this. You're not alone, and your life can change.
Thank you, Mike. We come to the end of the show now. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸੇ ਵੇਲੇ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਵੀਕ ਟਿਊਨ ਇਨ ਕਰਨਾ, ਨਵਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਹੋਗਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।